I sat in my car, heart pounding, watching the restaurant's entrance like a hunter stalking prey. My hands gripped the steering wheel, so tightly my knuckles turned white. There she was, my wife, laughing, touching his arm, gazing into his eyes the way she used to look at me. A lump formed in my throat as I stared through the windshield, barely able to breathe. The betrayal burned deep, like a knife twisting in my gut. She had no idea I was here. No idea I knew. For weeks, I had ignored the signs. The late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden change in perfume. But now there was no doubt. I reached for my phone, my fingers trembling as I hit record. If she thought she could lie her way out of this, she was dead wrong. She was about to learn just how much I knew. My name is Daniel, and for the past 6 years, I believed I had the perfect marriage. My wife, Emily, was my best friend, my rock, my everything. We met in college, one of those classic love stories where the shy guy falls for the outgoing, beautiful girl. I never thought I stood a chance, but somehow, she saw something in me. And from the moment she said yes to our first date, I was hooked. Our relationship was the kind people envied. We were the couple who finished each other's sentences, who laughed at inside jokes no one else understood. We traveled, made memories, and built a life together. She was my home. I still remember the day I proposed. It was a quiet Sunday morning, just the two of us in our tiny apartment, still in pajamas. No fancy dinner, no elaborate setup, just a ring, a nervous heart, and the woman I wanted to spend forever with. She cried, kissed me, and whispered, yes. 1,000 times yes. And for years, I thought she meant it. The marriage that felt like a dream. Life with Emily was easy. We rarely fought, and when we did, it was over silly things, what to watch on Netflix, who forgot to buy milk. Nothing serious. We built our careers side by side, me in finance, her in marketing. We talked about having kids someday, maybe moving to a bigger house. Everything felt stable, secure. I trusted her completely. She was the kind of woman who could light up a room. Her laugh was infectious, her energy magnetic. I loved the way she'd scrunch her nose when she was deep in thought, or the way she'd steal my hoodies, even though she had a closet full of her own. But then, things started to change. The first red flags. At first, they were small, subtle, the kind of things you brush off because you don't want to believe they mean anything. She started working late more often. I didn't think much of it. Her job could be demanding. But then came the missed dinners, the unanswered texts, the vague excuses. I'm just swamped at work, babe, she'd say, kissing my cheek before disappearing into the bathroom with her phone. She became distant, distracted. Some nights, she'd sit on the couch next to me, scrolling through her phone, barely engaging in conversation. When I'd ask what she was reading, she'd lock her screen and smile. Just work stuff. Then there were the changes in her appearance. Emily always took care of herself, but suddenly, she was putting in extra effort, new perfume, new lingerie, hitting the gym more often. At first, I thought maybe she was just trying to feel good about herself. But something felt off. One night, as we lay in bed, I reached for her. She turned away. Not tonight, she murmured, her voice distant. It wasn't the first time. And it wouldn't be the last. The lies begin. One evening, I decided to surprise her at work with dinner. A small gesture, something to make her smile. I drove to her office, parked outside, and waited. But she never came out. I called. No answer. After an hour, I finally texted, "Hey, still at work?" Minutes later, she replied, "Yeah, super busy. Heading home soon." But she wasn't at the office. Her car was gone. That was the first time I felt it. That sick, gut-wrenching certainty that something wasn't right. I didn't say anything that night. I wanted to believe there was an explanation, that I was just being paranoid. But deep down, a voice whispered, she's lying. And I had no idea just how deep the lies went. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling growing inside me, but once suspicion plants its seed, it spreads like wildfire. The little things that once seemed insignificant suddenly felt like puzzle pieces, forming an image I didn't want to see. The late-night texts. It started with the way she guarded her phone. Emily had never been secretive before. She used to leave her phone lying around, sometimes asking me to check her messages if her hands were full. But now it was always face down, always locked, always within reach. One night, as we lay in bed, I caught a glimpse of her screen, lighting up. She quickly tilted it away before I could see the name. "Who's that?" I asked casually. She hesitated for a second, just a second, but it was enough. "Oh, just work stuff," she said, setting her phone on silent and rolling onto her side. "Nothing important." But I knew Emily. If it was really work, she'd have complained about it. She always vented about long emails and annoying clients. Instead, she was hiding it. I didn't press her that night. But something deep inside me had shifted. The sudden disinterest. Emily had always been affectionate. Hugs in the kitchen, playful kisses on my cheek when I worked late, little notes in my lunch bag. But lately, it was like she was just going through the motions. I'd kiss her goodbye in the morning, and she'd barely respond. I'd ask about her day, and she'd give me one-word answers. Even intimacy felt forced. She'd pull away, say she was tired, or worse, fake enthusiasm just to get over with. It felt like I was living with a stranger. One evening, I suggested a date night, just the two of us, dinner at our favorite restaurant. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, I already made plans with Sarah," she said quickly. Sarah, her best friend. The one she suddenly spent every other night with. I forced a smile. "Oh yeah? What are you guys doing?" She blinked, just for a fraction of a second. Just dinner and drinks. Catching up." Another lie. I didn't know how I knew, but I knew. The weekend work trip. The final crack of my trust came when she announced she had a weekend work retreat. "I totally forgot to tell you," she said over breakfast one morning, acting like it was no big deal. "It's a last-minute team-building thing. I'll be back Sunday night." She was lying. I could hear it in her voice, see it in the way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Still, I forced myself to act normal. "Where's the retreat?" "Oh, just a resort a couple of hours away." "What's it called?" She hesitated, again, just for a second. I'll have to check the email. It's somewhere near the lake." Lie. I nodded, playing along. "Sounds fun. Who's all going?" She shrugged. "The usual team." Another lie. If it was work-related, she'd be excited, maybe even a little stressed. Instead, she was being vague, too vague. That night, while she was in the shower, I checked her suitcase. Lingerie. A red dress she hadn't worn in years. High heels. This wasn't a work retreat. This was a date. A weekend getaway. And I was done ignoring the signs. Time to find the truth. I knew I couldn't just ask her. She'd deny it. Gaslight me. Make me feel like I was crazy. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. That Friday, I pretended to head to work as usual, kissed her goodbye, like nothing was wrong. But instead of going to the office, I parked down the street, watching. A few minutes later, she walked outside, wearing the red dress. And then he arrived. Tall, well-dressed, confident. He stepped out of a sleek black car, grinning as he opened the door for her. She laughed, touching his arm, looking at him the way she used to look at me. My hands clenched into fists as I watched them drive away. She thought she had me fooled. She thought she was getting away with it. But she had no idea. I knew. And now, I was going to make sure she regretted every second of it. I followed them. I didn't have a plan, just a burning need to know how deep the betrayal went. My heart pounded in my chest as I stayed a few cars behind, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. They drove for about an hour, heading out of town, past the quiet suburbs, and toward a secluded resort by the lake. So much for her work retreat. When they pulled into the resort parking lot, I parked a safe distance away, watching as they stepped out of the car. He took her hand. She didn't pull away. Then he kissed her. Right there, in broad daylight, like they had nothing to hide. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. The woman I had loved, cherished, and built a life with was standing in front of me, wrapped in another man's arms. I wanted to scream, to storm over there, and rip them apart. But instead, I pulled out my phone and started recording. If she thought she could lie her way out of this, she was dead wrong. The evidence piles up. I sat in my car for a long time, watching as they disappeared into the resort together. My hands trembled as I scrolled through my phone, determined to find more proof. I went through our shared bank account transactions. There it was, a payment to this resort from her credit card. Then I checked her messages. I had never invaded her privacy before. But now I didn't care. She had deleted most of her messages, but she had forgotten one thing, her cloud backup. A few taps and everything was there. Texts from an unknown number flooded the screen. Him. Can't wait to see you this weekend. Emily, me too. I need you so bad. Him. I'll make it worth your while winking face. Emily, ugh, I hate lying to him, but he has no clue. Him. He doesn't matter. You're mine this weekend. I clenched my jaw, my whole body shaking. She hated lying to me? But she still did it. Repeatedly. Effortlessly. My chest tightened as I scrolled further. The messages went back months. Secret meetings, stolen moments, inside jokes, an entire relationship unfolding behind my back. I had been nothing but a joke to them. Face to face with betrayal. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Fueled by anger and betrayal, I stormed into the resort lobby. The receptionist barely had time to greet me before I spotted them at the bar, laughing over drinks. Emily had her hand on his thigh. She looked happy, carefree, like she didn't have a husband who was slowly breaking apart just a few feet away. I walked straight up to them, having a good time. The color drained from Emily's face as she turned, eyes widening in horror. Daniel, what are you doing here? I held up my phone, letting the recording play. The video of them kissing in the parking lot. The texts. All of it. Her lover, the man she had thrown away our marriage for, shifted uncomfortably. Who is this? He asked, clearly nervous. I let out a bitter laugh. Oh, you don't even know my name? That's Rich. I'm her husband. The man's eyes darted to Emily, as if expecting her to deny it. But she was frozen in place, lips parted, struggling to find words. Honey, I can explain. I cut her off. Don't. Just don't. I turned to the other man. So, how long have you been screwing my wife? He swallowed hard. I didn't know she was married. I scoffed. Oh, don't give me that. You knew. She told you she was lying to me. You just didn't care. Emily finally snapped out of her daze. Daniel, please, let's talk about this privately. Privately. I repeated, my voice laced with mockery. You didn't care about privacy when you were sneaking around behind my back. So why should I care now? The other man stood up. Look, man, I think you should calm down. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. You should walk away before I make you regret ever touching her. His face paled. He muttered something under his breath and hurried out of the bar, leaving Emily sitting there, exposed and humiliated. Good. The collapse. Emily reached for my hand. I pulled away. Daniel, I messed up. I know. But please, can we just go somewhere and talk? Her voice wavered, her eyes glistening with tears. I shook my head, laughing bitterly. You didn't mess up, Emily. You made a choice. Over and over again. You lied to me, slept with him, and made a fool out of me. And you expect me to just talk. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I still love you. No, I cut in. You don't. She let out a sob, burying her face in her hands. But I didn't feel sorry for her. She had shattered our marriage, and now she had to live with it. I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my chest. I had seen enough. It was over. Emily chased after me, her heels clicking frantically against the polished resort floor. Daniel, wait, she cried, grabbing my arm as I reached the exit. I yanked my arm away, spinning around to face her. My blood was boiling, my hands clenched into fists at my sides, just to keep from shaking. Wait. For what, Emily? More lies? Another excuse. Tears streamed down her face, her mascara smudging under her wide, desperate eyes. Please, just let me explain. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Explain what exactly? That you've been screwing him behind my back? That you had an entire affair while I sat at home like a fool, believing every single lie you told me? I took a step closer, lowering my voice. Or do you want to explain how you looked me in the eyes every day and pretended to love me while sneaking off to be with him? Her lips quivered as she reached for my hands. I never meant to hurt you. I jerked away. Don't you dare say that. My voice cracked with fury. You didn't accidentally cheat, Emily. You made a choice. Every single time. You lied to my face. You betrayed me. And now you want to act like you're sorry. She sobbed, clutching her chest like she was the victim. I am sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I scoffed, crossing my arms. Oh, really? So what did you want, Emily? Because from where I'm standing, it sure looks like you wanted him. She opened her mouth, then snapped it shut. Guilty. I laughed bitterly. Yeah, that's what I thought. The justifications and the lies. Emily wiped her tears, straightening her posture. It wasn't supposed to go this far. At first, it was just talking, and then... Oh, don't give me that, I cut in, shaking my head. You don't accidentally end up in bed with someone. That doesn't just happen. Her face twisted with guilt. I was lonely, Daniel. I blinked, stunned by the audacity of her words. Lonely. I repeated, my voice hollow. She nodded desperately. You were always busy with work, always tired. I felt like you weren't there for me anymore. And then I met him. I clenched my jaw, the betrayal sinking even deeper. So let me get this straight. Instead of talking to me, instead of telling me how you felt, you decided the best solution was to spread your legs for another man. Her face flushed with shame. I didn't plan it. It just... Stop, I snapped, my voice sharp. Just stop. You knew exactly what you were doing. You hid your phone. You lied about where you were going. You deleted your messages. You knew. She sniffled. I was scared to tell you the truth. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. No, Emily. You weren't scared. You were selfish. You didn't tell me the truth because you didn't want to lose him. She stayed silent, her silence saying more than any words ever could. The moment of truth. I let out a humorless chuckle. You know what hurts the most? It's not even that you cheated. It's that you let me believe we were okay. That we were happy. That we still had a future. Her lip trembled. I did love you, Daniel. I flinched. Did, past tense. She realized her mistake instantly, panic flashing across her face. I mean, I do love you. I swear. I stared at her, my heart breaking into 1,000 pieces. I had spent years loving this woman, believing we had something real. But now I could see it for what it was. A lie. I swallowed hard, steadying myself. If you really loved me, Emily, you wouldn't have done this. She reached for me again, desperation in her voice. We can fix this. We can go to therapy, we can... No. Her breath hitched. I shook my head, my voice firm. I deserve better than this. I deserve better than you. Her sobs grew louder, but I felt nothing. Not anymore. She had destroyed everything. And I wasn't going to let her destroy me too. I turned, walking away without looking back. It was over. I walked away from Emily, my heart pounding, but my mind was clear for the first time in weeks. She stood there, frozen, her face streaked with tears, watching me leave. But I wasn't done yet. I could have just left, let her wallow in her guilt, let her deal with the mess she created. But after everything, the lies, the betrayal, the humiliation, she didn't deserve to walk away unscathed. No, she was going to feel this. The perfect revenge. I stepped outside into the cool night air, pulling out my phone. A few taps, and I sent the video, the one of her kissing her lover in the parking lot, to everyone who needed to see it. Her family, her friends, our friends, along with a simple message. Turns out Emily's work retreat was actually a romantic getaway. Hope the lies were worth it. I didn't stay to see the aftermath. I got into my car, my hands steady, my breathing even. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt free. Watching her world crumble. The fallout was immediate. By the time I got home, my phone was blowing up with messages. Her mother, Daniel, I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Her best friend Sarah, she told me she was with me this weekend. I can't believe this. I'm disgusted. One of her co-workers, dude, she's been lying to all of us. I'm so sorry, man. And then, finally, Emily herself. Call after call. Message after message. I let them pile up unread. The final blow. The next day, I packed up her things. Every last trace of her. I didn't break anything, didn't destroy her stuff. No, that would be too easy. Instead, I set all her belongings neatly by the door, along with the printed screenshots of her texts with her lover. A full display of her betrayal, laid bare. When she finally showed up, her face was a mix of exhaustion, regret, and panic. Daniel, please, she whispered, her voice raw. Can we just talk? I didn't even look at her. Your stuff is inside. Take it and go. She hesitated. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. I met her eyes, my voice steady. You didn't make a mistake, Emily. You made a choice. And now, you have to live with it. Her breath hitched, and for the first time, I saw true fear in her eyes. Not fear of losing me, fear of realizing what she had lost. I stepped aside, letting her walk past me one last time. No yelling, no fighting, just the deafening silence of what she had destroyed. As she gathered her things, she turned to me, her voice barely a whisper. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? I stared at her for a long moment. Then, with the calmest voice I had, I said, I don't hate you, Emily, but I'll never forgive you. She choked back a sob, nodding. And just like that, she was gone. Moving forward. It took time. It took nights where I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. It took mornings where I woke up expecting to see her beside me, only to be hit with the painful reminder that she was never coming back. But every day it got easier, because I realized something. She hadn't just lost me. She had lost everything. Her family was ashamed of her. Her friends turned their backs on her. Even the guy she cheated with? Gone. She had gambled everything and lost. And me? I walked away with my dignity. And that was the best revenge of all.